In this episode, we're going to talk about a little pet peeve of mine, and that's something that I call gear fetish. I see it an awful lot in advertisements for cinematographers, where the importance is put on the equipment rather than the talent of the artist. I understand that a lot of younger filmmakers believe that the better the camera, the better the movie. I'm not sure that I agree with that, and I'm going to talk about why. The first thing that anybody should keep in mind is that a movie needs to have some sort of style with its cinematography, and there are a lot of different photographers out there that have a lot of different styles. So the first thing you should consider before looking for a cinematographer is what type of movie you're making. What style is it going to be? Once you've figured that out, you can start looking around for camera people that can shoot that kind of look for you. An important thing to look for is a cinematographer's resume. Now, if you're a low-budget production and you can't afford to pay top dollar for a camera person, your prospects may look like they're going to be limited, but if you search around to the right places, you might end up finding a gem that nobody else has discovered. So when you're putting out the call for a cinematographer, ask for their resume, but don't toss them if they don't have a large one. What you'll want to look for at that point is a demo reel. Now, some people believe that demo reels are for amateurs. Honestly, I think that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard from a camera person. A demo reel from a camera person gives you an example of how they shoot, gives you an idea of what kind of camera angles they can come up with, and quite frankly, most camera people aren't commonly known names. When you talk about bigger films, you're usually talking about the actors or the directors. Trying to remember who shot what big blockbuster is a bit of a stretch, and only people who are extremely interested in that particular part of filmmaking is going to remember those names. So, if you come across a camera person who tells you that demo reels are not important, those are the ones you toss, because they're expecting you to hire them without showing you what they can do first. Once you find a couple camera people who shoot in the style that you like, then it's time to approach them. Explain to them a bit about your movie and the look that you're going for, and reference a movie that they've shot before that it was in a similar style. You might find that they hated that particular movie that you're referencing, or maybe they loved it. Either way, get a feel for what their ideas might be when you're talking about your film. Now, if you're still stuck in that school that believes that the better the camera, the better the film, here's a few things that you should consider. First of all, if you want somebody who has a top dollar camera, you're going to be paying them top rate. Some cinematographers can get really arrogant about the type of equipment they have and know that it demands that price, but for the most part, they're still paying that thing off. There are people who are making payments on their equipment that are equivalent to a car or a house payment, so they're not going to work for dirt cheap, and they're certainly not going to volunteer. Unless, of course, they got that camera as a gift. Somebody with a rich uncle or trust fund might blow a lot of money on a great camera and think that that's going to immediately make them a great cinematographer. That's not true either. Now, I have heard camera people talk about how the cameras generally shoot themselves, which is great, but if the person who's operating it doesn't have an eye for where to point it, you're not going to have a good film. So, also keep in mind that somebody who is willing to work cheap and has a top-end camera may not necessarily be trained on how to properly use it. If you're looking for a cinematographer who has some idea of techniques, you might want to consider looking at film school students or people who studied photography. These are people who are eager to start working in the film industry, or maybe they have done a little bit of film and they're looking to climb up that ladder, and they might be very interested in shooting your movie at a low rate, if not as a volunteer. Many of them have their own equipment, although you may end up having to rent a better camera for them. This usually involves getting production insurance, but if you're pairing the right camera person with the right equipment, you can end up with a beautifully shot film. Another thing to consider is what your platform is going to be when it comes to how people are going to watch your film. If you're shooting for big theatrical release, then yes, the type of camera and how you shoot is going to be important. But if you're expecting your film to only be seen on streaming channels, which means computers and television screens, the production cost on the camera can be a lot less expensive, since you're not having an image that's blown up by 12 feet. When you start considering this, look at your film and be completely honest with yourself. If this is your first film, chances are it's not going to be getting theatrical release, so you might want to skip that top-of-the-line camera, go for a mid-range one, and shoot something that is suitable for streaming movie channels. It can take a lot of searching to find the right camera person for your project, but by doing a lot of research on the ones that you're interested in, approaching them, bargaining with them, you can generally find a decent camera person for your film and keep yourself in budget. You don't necessarily have to have the very best camera, but what you're aiming for is the very best person that is available to you to shoot your film. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Unconnected Filmmaker, and if you found this information useful and want to be notified when the next video premieres, just hit that subscribe button. Or if you have anything you'd like to see an episode on, feel free to comment below. See you next time, and keep those cameras rolling.